Last year, I put out a survey for autistic adults like ourselves, actually diagnosed, to answer a lot of questions that we turned into a show. And the model of the vagina monologue, in the hope that in the future this thing would be free range, it would be an open source show. It could be formed anywhere in the world, other autistic people could take it, could do any format they liked of it, including musicals, and could have any content as long as it was positive. And so this is the first proper performance of it, the two of us. And we're still learning it, so we've got things to read.
Stealth Aspies, autistic people talking. Malcolm Hamilton. I found out shortly after my 41st birthday. I had to chase the diagnosis. The GP practice had never dealt with an adult's diagnosis before and didn't know where to send me. I had to source that for them. The actual process just took a day at the Scottish Centre for Autism. Now, as I don't know what typical is like, it's difficult to give a comparison. I know I prefer a lot more peace and quiet than my work colleagues. I can feel quite lonely despite being surrounded by folk, as I often feel I have no connection with them. Throughout my life I had difficulty making friends. Many acquaintances and folk I know, but not really friends as such. But then again, what really is a friend? Due to the nature of my job, I tend not to reveal my Asperger's as there is still a great misunderstanding about it, and I think it would affect how my patients view me. I never pretend to be autistic. I am just myself. Though I do have to adopt some strategies for my communication. I have to consciously be aware if I'm talking too much or not allowing others to talk. I'm not sure I can act as if I am neurotypical. I think those who don't know my diagnosis just think I'm a bit focused and intense at times. Brusque and forceful are often words associated with me. I have a lack of close friends, and other than my wife, no real social life. No clubs or societies. No friendly invites out for a drink. I compromise myself hugely around neurotypicals. I have to tolerate very chatty work colleagues whom I just want to scream, "Shut up!" at. The difficulty of not seeing how can you understand it's simple when I can see a simple solution, but they want to put in what seem like hundreds of what-ifs into the problem. And I did not know about my Asperger's. I just felt I was pursuing my own path, but I was a bit individual. What really hit home was when exploring the possibility of Asperger's, reading a paragraph in a Tony Attwood book that summed up my entire childhood. I thought I was unique, that I was me, and suddenly I was a stereotype. I feel no pressure being autistic. It is part of me, I accept it. The issue is more the reverse, getting folk to accept that I actually have a diagnosis. Oh, how can you have Asperger's? You have a degree and a job. Before I knew there were elements of stress in my life, various behaviours would manifest that would impact on family life. Diagnosis has led to the whole family being involved and everybody having the knowledge to work together better. This is Izzy. I guess I was around the age of 14. I am now 18 and on a university physics course. I would probably have to wait quite a while for an NHS diagnosis and haven't got £1,000 for a private diagnosis, so I am waiting and see if I will grow out of it. I do not think I will. It will be hard for me to get a diagnosis as an adult woman who appears to function, so I'm not sure if there is much point. I think it's good being neurodiverse, but I get concerned about keeping down jobs, because even though I'm very good with numbers and language and like people, I often read as eccentric and inept due to my autism. It requires me to do a lot more work to be wacky, and I can't get to be normal. I'd like them to empathise with us. I always feel like an asymptote to normality. I've often been in denial about whether I was autistic. I fake neurotypical deliberately, making eye contact when I don't want to at all. I often put myself into safe situations where I get to practice talking to people and analysing the situations, then working out what I need to do. All this so it becomes more natural for me and happens without thinking to some degree. I can use my academic cleverness to make things about me seem more normal. People then write off the weird things about me. I can surface level mimic others, but not properly. It's still very difficult to form deep relationships and know whether I'm doing the right thing. Socially, my Aspie nature often manifests, such as when I take things literally. I can also find myself needing to question everything that others do. I have difficulty making friends. I can't go out with my peers due to the noise levels in pubs and clubs. Culturally, I am off reference all the time. I do not get cultural references, despite having had a fairly similar upbringing to those I am surrounded by. Also, I struggle with emails. I have no understanding of romantic relationships to a degree that other friends of my gender who are nerdy, but probably not autistic, don't have. I still compromise myself quite a lot to see the early days of a situation. Then it becomes less easy to do. For example, I moved to university halls recently, and in my first days of knowing flatmates, I would talk and attempt small talk. Now I can barely bring myself to talk to them and have no idea how to communicate properly. Before I knew, I didn't understand why I was so weird. I was bullied and constantly panicking. I would have shutdowns and not know why or how to prevent them. I would just go to the doctors about minor things. The tutors at school and everything would just scratch the surface and never get to the root of the problem. Professionally, I am almost constantly under pressure to hide my autism. I have no choice. I am under lots of pressure socially and in study environments to act normal. But physically, I can't do this anymore. Admittedly, my area of study and professional field are often seen as the reserve or the eccentric, which helps, but I still can't do it properly. Before I knew, I would spend my school days in libraries and would get social input from the Harry Potter and Doctor Who fan communities online, as well as linguistics, language and other interests, but not participating fully. I got bullied, which meant I eventually giving up on talking to people, except for a book club at school, which helped me to get some friends who I still struggle to fit in with socially. Also, I did a youth theatre thing backstage, which helped me with talking to new people more. My advice to other Aspies is to try and fit in is to attempt eye contact and learn some very neutral small talk lines. Find a few films, songs, TV shows, books that you don't mind that are popular or ongoing things, so you have some cultural reference points. Go to interest groups when trying to get friends. Find autistic friends with similar interests, values. They've been a real anchor for me. They understand the issues I have and can actually help me out because they are similarly clueless. But also, do not try to be autistic. Give yourself time to relax and do special interest things in other places, if you can find it.
This is Rebecca. I found out 5 months ago at the age of 44. This was possibly one of the most traumatic and liberating things I have found out about myself. But it made sense. And now I'm in the now what stage of learning about myself and this thing that defines me, but then doesn't. Knowing what I am is so confusing, but also freeing in how I can now see a lot of information to help me cope with the anxiety. The insomnia and the anxiety are the worst. The creativity is cool, but the mind ramblings, the fixed need to be right, and the need to have days out a lot is a big pain. As is working in the normal world with people that seem so rude. but apparently they are normal and I'm rude. I hid it at work, but now it's very frustrating. Also, I see more people now as the autistic. Now I have more knowledge of it. They're everywhere. I pretend I'm not autistic by just being quiet and not interacting much. I hide behind using a computer to communicate and rewrite most of my emails with the niceties and less brutal truisms. I have been pretending I was not autistic for 44 years. I just act like I understand things like people chatting, jokes, etc. But really, I'm not actually listening. I just skip through connecting with people and move on as if I'd understood what they said. I really misunderstand people. Sometimes I get anxious and pretend I'm calm, but really, I'm just bewildered by the actions of others. Socially, I will drink to help me calm down and join in more. Or I'll just act shy, but people think I'm being snotty or aloof. I compromise myself to the neurotypicals around me 99% of the time. I'm exhausted by it. Plus, a people please. But in reality, my mind is arguing over what they're saying. And this is Nick. I've been struggling with severe anxiety, especially social, and depression for quite some time. Never feeling like I could connect with other people. They were so weird and incomprehensible to me. One day, when I was maybe around 40, there was a quiz going around Facebook, which I took, and my score was well into the autism stroke Asperger's range. My first reaction was that it was nonsense, and just some silly internet quiz. But I was compelled to do some research. When I did, I realised that I identified quite a lot with what I was reading. Sometime in the next couple of years, I'll do an autism clinic specialised in adult diagnoses, and I was given a professional diagnosis. It's just who I am. It's not a lack of skill or intelligence, and it's not a surprise either. I just have a different skill set than average. For example, asking me to babysit is like asking an average non-technical person to please code a mobile app. The latter I could do easily, even though I never have, but babysitting is completely Before I knew I was autistic, I used to feel like I was a failure as a human being, because things that seemed to come naturally to most people were near impossible for me. Things that I struggled to even endure, others didn't even seem to notice. It wasn't until I understood that I was autistic that I realised that other people didn't experience the world the same way I do. Other people were able to filter sensory input so that they're not bombarded with everything in the same intensity. Other people can process speech real time without a delay so that they can keep up with conversations. Other people can fill in information about moods and feelings without even having to think about it, other than only seeing or hearing what is actually, literally there. I don't necessarily hide it, but I don't really advertise it either. If it becomes an issue, then I will mention it. I spent 40 years trying to be something unnatural to me. It's very draining. And I suffer periods of burnout where I'm not able to do much of anything. I have better things to spend my energy on. I'm not really able to put on an act. All I can do is suppress. My method of pretending then is really just being silent and still, which ends up drawing attention anyway. My silence, lack of expression have always stood out as weird to other people, and it's always what people comment on. So it's not a very effective act. I have learned stop responses and small talk. I hate them, but I can use them appropriately when I have to, in order not to seem too weird. I cannot, however, do anything beyond that. I can't do spontaneous conversation. I don't talk. I mean, this is literally not true, as I'm capable of speech. But I can't participate in spontaneous conversations. I can give short answers to questions, but my speech processing time is so long, it's just easier for me not to talk. Occasionally, a certain topic might come up, at which I will talk about well beyond what others are interested in. I've been told that either I don't talk at all or I don't stop it. Oh. Since I am now aware that the latter is annoying, I tend to default to not talking at all. I tend to put everyone else's comfort above my own, so I feel like I compromise quite a lot. It's very hard for me to ask for accommodations. I'm so embarrassed that it's so difficult for me to handle things. I don't bother other people. I just shut off instead of saying anything. I have always tried to be as invisible as possible. I'll stay here. I felt like I was broken and weak. I thought that everyone experienced the world like I do, and they were just somehow stronger and better able to cope than I was. It didn't help that my former stepdad treated me as if this were true. There's a cat on the stage. I'll just ignore it. They say all cats have Asperger's syndrome. There's a book. At this point in my life, I am done pretending to be someone I'm not. I will choose to be poor rather than expending significant energy faking it, just to have a little more and then not be able to enjoy life anyway. It was very difficult pretending I was not autistic. I was ashamed that I was perceived as weird, no matter how hard I tried to be normal. I pushed myself to do things that were insanely difficult for me because other people did them with little effort. And I didn't want to be seen as weak or, lazy. I did nothing but work and sleep because I had no energy for anything else. And then I got to the point where life was pointless. I would never suggest that someone try to do typical. Typical does not equal better. At best it equals average. However, I find that if I practice proper self-care, including eating properly, sleeping enough, and allowing myself plenty of alone time to pursue my own interests for recuperation, it is much easier to participate in the world at large in smaller doses without being so overwhelmed that it causes a disturbance. Because we all empathise with each other on the spectrum. Also, if you have options, I know not everyone does, try to find a way to work with your natural inclinations rather than having to suppress them. There are companies now that are hiring autistic people specifically for the skills that they have. I am working for one of them now. Others find ways to freelance their skills or run their own businesses. It's not necessary to be a cookie-cutter human in order to get by or even be successful.
This is from Helen. I always felt out of place and really self-conscious. I'm tall for a woman, and that didn't help, although it does have some advantages. I didn't understand why I found it difficult to follow a conversation, particularly if several people were talking at once. I'd give myself a hard time. You've got a university degree, you should be able to concentrate on this, etc. I'm aware that I had different ways of behaving with different people and struggled with my identity. I was bullied a lot and didn't know why. I tried really hard to be normal, but just couldn't connect. I don't consciously hide it, though I've been told by a few people that it's not as obvious as I feel it is. Life was tiring and confusing when I did not know. I knew that I was struggling with things, but not why. I felt like a failure, and as I kept getting things wrong, despite trying to fit in. Be nice to yourself. For me, having had a relatively recent diagnosis has meant a bit of a roller coaster of thoughts. A relief that I found the reason for many of the difficulties I faced, along with the realization that I'll never really understand how other people experience the world. I'm also still struggling to work out who I am. Now at least I have a framework to try and fit things in. The realization that most people's brains don't work the way mine does is a bit weird. So how do they relate to the world then? PhD, female medical student. I was 24 and a computer science PhD student when I discovered I was on the spectrum. I started having panic attacks in the summer before my 24th birthday, and over the following couple of months descended into severe depression. I eventually went to my GP, who after months of getting nowhere, persuaded me to see a counsellor, who noted that I wouldn't look her in the eye and said, "What do you know about Asperger's syndrome?" She followed this up with, "But I don't know, I mean, you obviously have a sense of humour, and you're not meant to if you're on the spectrum." I was offended because all I had been told about ASD was that autistic people don't realise that other people have feelings. This and the humour thing made me sure I could not be autistic. Au contraire! I went home and did some Google searching and discovered that actually those things are myths, and it was obvious that I have Asperger's right from the start. I mentioned this to my GP at my next appointment, and she immediately referred me for diagnosis. I was officially diagnosed about 9 months later at the age of 25. I want the world to know that autistic people A. have feelings, B. can empathise, C. care about other people. I also wish that autism were not understood as primarily a social or communication disorder with sensory processing weirdnesses as a side note, but rather a sensory processing difference that has social communication side effects. I have to hide it, and I've done it since I was diagnosed about almost 2 years ago. I'm a medical student, and due to the autistic people can't feel empathy and autistic people don't like people myths, it would hurt my career if people made these assumptions about me. My immediate family and one of my best friends knows. The other one said, "Oh, but you're not medically weird, you're just normally weird," when I tried to tell her. So I mention it again, and I don't know whether she really registered, but that's it. I pretend I am neurotypical with difficulty. It takes a lot of energy. For years, it also used energy turned against myself as I tried to experience the world the way I was told I should. Trying to find the sensory and the emotional and physiological responses in myself that I was told I was having when they are not there, and deny the ones that are. Now at least I can understand and focus all my energy on passing in public. I don't have to pretend when I'm at home alone. I try to act normal in public and suppress more obvious stims, although sometimes they get through if I'm not paying attention. I make excuses like, I have an appointment to explain why I can't do things, instead of being able to say, I'm completely overwhelmed by processing sensory input, I need to go home and shut myself away until I've recovered. I tell people I have a migraine instead of saying I'm having an autistic shutdown. I pretend that things don't hurt my senses when they do. I fake enthusiasm for things I don't care about or that scare the hell out of me, because that's the normal response. I claim reactions to things that I don't experience. I nod along and pretend to understand when actually I have no idea what is going on. I can't live with other people outside my immediate family, because I would be required to pretend not to be autistic all the time and very quickly break down as I would become exhausted. This makes me really lonely and isolated, because I actually love people and want to connect with them. And I like interacting with them. When it's not obvious, they think I'm a weirdo. I can't attend social events outside of maintaining routine day-to-day function, as I just don't have the energy or brain capacity. I want to, but I can't. This makes people think I'm unfriendly or think I'm above them. As the song by The Who goes, sometimes I feel the need to get away. I have mostly learned not to say obviously autistic things to people. And sometimes I speak before I think, and people think I'm being insensitive and rude. I very much compromise myself to the neurotypicals around me. Maybe less since I found out I'm autistic, but still, Very much so.
This is Julie. And Julie says, in 2015, I was 45, and my friend suggested I go to the National Health Service to give me an assessment. The Cambridge Mental Health team rejected the idea because I hadn't mentioned it before in previous therapy. That's a long story. And so my friend and I discussed the matter, and I asked the National Health Service if I could self-refer, which cost 4 times the amount than you would have done privately. Yeah. But my friend suggested I do it this way because it would be NHS approved, so to speak, so I was sceptical. My friend wasn't, so we both agreed that if she was wrong, she paid, and if she was right, I paid. Well, she was right. My friend, being a very loving friend, said she'd go half, but me said, deal is a deal, and I'm fixed about that. I'd like the world to know that often when I'm thinking in social situations, what the fuck is going on? My senses pick up on all the nuances, so I hear somebody say something, but they don't appear to look like what they are saying, hence, what the fuck is going on? When the body language, tone, and what is said match, I'm happy, but that's a rarity. What the fuck is going on? In society, there is such a lot of stuff that is incongruous, and that fucks me up, and I get triggered. Left, right, and centre. Now, I know I'm not hiding. I'm sick of trying to be what everybody else says I should. It's my time to come out of the closet and say, why don't you stop trying to make me something I'm evidently never going to be, and if I do manage it for a while, that's all I can do. I will meet you all in the middle ground, and that's as far as I am willing to travel. In the process of grief, for all the years I've been made to feel there is something wrong with me, I'm in the process of grief for all the years I've been made to feel there is something wrong with me. Yeah? I'm different, and that is okay, and it will take me time to unlearn 45 years of people telling me I'm not okay. Yeah. Social chit-chat is a mild form of torture. Eye contact is a mild form of torture. I have high-functioning anxiety, intellect, and I'm hyperactive, so full of energy, and have difficulty regulating speech, and then I'm bothered by speaking a stream of consciousness nervously, and then that can give me low self-esteem and cognitive distortions, and low mood, and it goes on, but I am in particularly low mood at present, so this isn't the whole picture. There is lots of bliss and clarity and liberating movements and cleverness and thrills about brilliant body and mind ability, and I am very social and very empathetic, but very bored and very impatient about hearing such a lot of uninteresting crap in society just for the sake of stroking each other's ego and social harmony. What about truth? Facts and detail, not these generalizations which come out of each individual as if a person is individual, but really the person is a manifestation of society. I love authenticity, not hearing people speak like Stepford Wiseman. So I'm quite the challenging person or catalyst, sometimes asking questions and disrupting on purpose the robotic nature of the neurotypical fog. And I don't mean to be rude to anyone, but can you imagine how frustrating it is again? I say to you all, what the fuck is going on? People love to see a challenging character in a movie, but if there is one in front of you, it's a different matter. Embrace neurodiversity, or we will all die of boredom. I've compromised myself to death in the company of neurotypicals, which is why I am in social isolation now. I literally have exhausted compromise, and I'm very lonely, because contrary to popular myth about being autistic, I'm very social. But you know, I'd rather feel the pain of loneliness than annihilate myself with compromise anymore. It's about time some of you compromised to me.
This is going to be our last excerpt from the show, but before I do it, just want to say we have some CDs for sale, £3 each, and also you may have spotted on the wall there, just across the advert for Frosted Glasses was a film I was involved in making a few years ago, and it's about mental health and Asperger's syndrome. Lasts an hour, and it costs a tenner. It stars London Star Sale with two really fantastic actors, and really probes the Asperger's syndrome mental health experience in an intensely visual way. I'd recommend this actually, so see us afterwards if you're interested. And this, okay, is the last one, and it's by a guy called Dave Owen. I was 46 when I found out. I had long believed I was somewhere on the autistic spectrum, but realised from reading that my sensory acuity was consistent with Asperger's. So I sought a diagnosis via my GP. I am autistic all the time. I never try to hide my nature, even when I'm not exhibiting evidence. Your behaviour is making me tired and anxious all the time. You keep forgetting this. I periodically hide my autism when it is pragmatically useful, such as at first job interviews. I do it more deliberately now than I used to. Before diagnosis, I tried to be typical. Now, I pretend to be typical. I do that same thing, model neurotypical behaviour, say and do things that are not me. Sometimes I fake neurotypical by pretending to be interested in other people and their ideas if it would benefit me. I also make a lot of noise and movement like they do. When socialising, I can get very tired in company and will leave it. I verbally stim and tick when anxious. I become more liberal and supposedly pedantic when anxious or tired. Others are sometimes curious, but they eventually devalue what I am saying because they think it's the condition speaking and not a whole person. I compromise myself less and less since diagnosis. I am reclaiming my way of being. The world often has little compassion for me, so I give it myself by compromising less. Before I knew, I felt incomplete, out of place, awkward, unhappy. If someone is creating stimulus I find unbearable, sometimes I can say that I am autistic and ask them to stop, and sometimes I can't. I'm too frightened or tired to ask sometimes. Before I knew, I handled it all by drinking to excess, and sought refuge in external concerns and inputs. I would advise other Aspies that it's okay to stay quiet or silent. Move away from overstimulus deliberately rather than flinching. Sometimes I decide to emphasise my autism when it works for me, when there is a sympathetic power that can help. Sometimes I decide to hide it, when it would show me as vulnerable and give advantage to others. Autism has always been with us and always will be. I'm Alan English, this is Paul Wady. This is Stealth Aspies. Thank you very much.
Let's hear it for Alan English and Paul Wady. They will be back on the 27th of July doing the Edinburgh excerpts preview. Yes, and tonight there was a cover charge. Entry was £3, so please pay Alan on the way out. No?
Right, got it all. It's all sorted.
Oh, it's all sorted. So
I
got to know.
I took them all down as the I sent a little ginger girl on them, really.
Okay, that's great. And tonight we had the amazing David Lee Morgan. Let's hear it for him. Becky Fury. Alan and Paul Wady. Our special guest, Andy Fiver. You've been a wonderful audience. My name is Jason White. Good night. We met her at the show.
Okay, now I get
The bar's still open, you don't have to rush off and get a cup of tea. You can have a chat.
neurotypical. it'll become part of the list.
Sound like you're really smart.
That's my CDs, that's the difference.
So yeah, we need to sort that. One of the logos. On the slides you got last time. The last we can print. We can print some
I don't actually look at the study, but my ex-son will go in there. My ex-son will go in there. You may hear it next time.
Does that mean I get to see yourself?
And if you want, yeah, well, I mean, I don't think